particularly for being here in this day and with this kind of weather. I will transport all of you to another kind of weather and another region in the world, in the Amazon, the Bolivian Amazon. This is kind of a challenge for me because it's the first time I'm trying to systematize all the information I gathered in the last 8 months in the framework of a research visit with the Catholic Bolivian University. And this work, so more than excusing myself, because it's the first time, I want to ask you for your feedback on how to put order and which factors I also could consider by analyzing all this information and the preliminary conclusions. So I will introduce the project, the protected area where the research was done, the actors, the problem, and I will introduce a bit of the 3 theoretical frameworks I used, mainly the concepts I use to apply the methodology I am proposing, the research questions, methodology of research, the results, and the conclusions. And as I said, this was mainly a methodological proposal to include communal and participatory indicators in a protected area. So what is the big project within my small research is being done? It is the rights of wetlands operationalization for biodiversity and community resilience. And this project is based on the fact that since 1970s, 87% of the global wetlands have been lost. That means biodiversity loss, ecosystem degradation, climate change being exacerbated. So based on this, there is a radical proposal within this approach. Maybe you have heard of this movement, Right of Nature, which advocates for nature rather than being considered a commodity, something that you can also exchange in the market, or a property, individual or common. It's a rights-bearing entity, just like we are human beings. Also, nature has its own rights. And this is something that is advancing globally, this radical view, because it helps people to file lawsuits on behalf of certain ecosystems, no? And it has also this holistic view of not focusing only on soil or on water, but really on the complete functioning of these ecosystems. So this approach is advancing, and this big project is also a part and works in this line. Then we have here 5 partners. Bolivia, where I did my research. You have also Ecuador. You have Guyana, who is here, Kenya, and Sri Lanka. And the idea of this project is mainly to raise awareness, to analyze how is wetland being lost, what are the good practices there, and what one country can learn from the other, particularly in these wetland ecosystems. Where I work was, okay, as I said, in Bolivia, no? This is a Ramsar site. You know what a Ramsar site is, no? It's a wetland of international importance because of the biodiversity there, the functioning the ecosystem. So here you have this is the protected area. This is a municipal protected area, not a national one. So the municipal government established this protected area. And it's beautiful, I can tell you. It has many endemic species, like the barbazul is not here, that's a bird. Some monkeys are also endemic there. This is the Rio Yata. That's the Ramsar area, no? The Rio Yata. That it's a tributary to the Beni River. That is also a tributary of the Amazon River. So this is part of the Amazonian cuenca. I forgot now the name of the cuenca. Anyways, so to continue, these wetlands are at risk, no? One of them, and the big risk, is climate change, particularly in Bolivia. You have that very close area that is Santa Cruz. Maybe you have heard of it. It's very close to this area. While the water has increased the temperature by 0.6 degrees, in this area, the temperature has increased to 1.1 degree, no? And the territory has 27% less rainfall than 4 decades ago. So climate change is really doing something there. It's of course a loop because this is causing fires, and fires are also causing more of forest lost and increasing the temperatures. So you see here that in the Amazon area is very often affected by droughts, but the temperatures, as I mentioned, have increased a lot. So that today the fires have the biggest share on adverse event in the Bolivian Amazon. No, that's, as you can see here, 31%. The next one is floods with 23%. This is a very complex context. I just will mention climate change and the economic development model, because in this area, cattle ranching is increasing, the extension of agricultural land trafficking, and mining activities. So you can see in this picture how an area that was covered by forest is now becoming grassland, no? And this is happening in a very alarming way. And I guess you have also heard of this dramatic tragedy happening in 2024. 10,000 million hectares have been lost or have been burned, sorry, not lost, have been burned only in Bolivia, no? And you can see here, this is the area where the research is being done and where this municipal area, protected area, is located. All these areas, in Bolivia, there are more than 20 protected areas, and in all of them, fire events have been recorded. So, who are the actors there? Of course, the wetlands are the actors. These are different approaches to how you identify the actors. Here you have the actors where the wetlands are the main ones, no? And the relations with the urban population, livestock farmers, peasants living in the communities who are descendants of migrants. They are not indigenous people here. Fishermen, touristic, both men and women, and some people involved directly in the touristic activities. Here you have an actor analysis made by the community and how are the relations, which is very similar to the one when you take the wetlands in the center, but the relations vary, no? The kind of relation they have. So I will not stop here because I'm concentrating now on the relation between the communities and the wetlands specifically, only on that relation. So what's the problem in this big context? There are many problems, but one of them is that these communities don't have the elements to follow up what's happening within their protected area. There are 9 communities there, and they have no clue how to, besides asking the municipal government for what they need, they have no other idea on how to improve their own situation, no? They have very low level of education. Some of them have only 5 years of school, very basic. And so when we are talking about wetlands management and wetlands rights, we talk also about indicators. You know that since 1992, the sustainability debate, these indicators became very important, and there is a debate how top-down or bottom-up these indicators should be constructed. So there is an agreement globally that participatory indicators are good in general. No? They increase acceptance and support. They contribute to a more sustainable management, particularly of the protected area. Anyway, so all the advantages are well known. No? But what happened in this particular municipal protected area. Of course, the municipal government has management plans, but they measure this area in biophysical indicators, no? Soil, humidity, I don't know, also presence of microorganisms in the soil. So this is the kind of indicators that experts build there. On the other hand, the government has also indicators in the municipal plans, but these are mainly expenditure indicators, how much they have executed their budget, no? So what we have there, even under this idea of expenditure indicators and biophysical indicators, there is a lack of capacity to monitor what they themselves are setting as indicators. And also there is a need of specialized knowledge. Only the experts can measure these biophysical indicators. Only the expert can measure how much it has been expended, no? So there is no participation of the local communities in this planning. So, and there is also a partial concept of what is to manage a protected area in that way. So what we have as a result is a separation of the daily life, what's happening with people there, what I show with the climate change, with the fires, with the livestock expanding, particularly from the livestock, these cattle ranching activities. So there is a separation of what is reality there, the escalating threats, and the policies that could be implemented to protect this area, no? As theoretical framework, then I took 3 elements. One of them, the first one, is the participatory indicators. What are they? Why are they important? And there are 2 main paradigms that can be recognized in the methodology for indicators. No? One is, of course, the expert-led top-down approach. That's also called a reductionistic approach. Sometimes they confirm if they are right or not, also making some communities to participate, validating, informing. But there is also this community-based or bottom-up approach. But they also have problems, no? And we have here Pablo de la Cruz, who is an expert on that. He has been working for the Institute, the Amazonian Institute, evaluating some of the indicators who were elaborated for indigenous participation. So Pablo, I hope you come also with some feedback here. And he and his colleagues, of course, by doing this evaluation, say, okay, it makes difficult to develop indicators and the political negotiations involved, no, between the indigenous groups, the government, and even the SINCHI, the same institute that was leading this process. Another challenge is the lack of access to funds and the lack of infrastructure and the training in information systems of the indigenous themselves, of the local communities. No? And there are other studies that also confirm something that we already know for our experience in the field. It's difficult to make people participate. It's easier to make it top-down. But this is not sustainability, no? And this is not participatory. It's more difficult. In a study, for example, in Mexico, Santana Medina concluded that indicators that are expressed by the local communities don't comply with the required standards, with our scientific standards, no? And that they are long and complicated procedures. So what I did was to read about these communal indicators, participatory indicators. Something I found more sound and close to the reality was, of course, the study, the work of this Amazonian Institute for Scientific Research, which basically proposed that indicators and the knowledge gap about the social, ecological, and economic realities of the Amazon is not only a question of the availability of information, but on how information is produced and appropriated by organizations and communities. No? So I will not explain this methodology. It has some steps where indigenous populations participate more than in others. For example, in defining the ideal life, they use the definition of abundance. What is abundance for you? They ask the communities, and they say what it was for them. So the experts and Sinchi proposed indicators, and it was both ways, cyclical processes of confirming, testing, and then they came out with the measurements and with the publication. So that was the closest to what I wanted to propose, considering that these communities, as I mentioned before, don't have any technical support beyond some technical fixes from some international organizations like, I don't know, pH measurement or votes for the touristic activities, but not really this participatory approach. The second of the three theoretical frameworks that I took was the feminist political ecology and wetlands. So I don't need to repeat maybe this because we have been talking about this in the courses and all that women are more vulnerable than men to the effects of climate change in the areas of malnutrition, livelihoods, water insecurity, and others, no? And this is scientifically studied by the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, but it has been also specifically done by in wetlands by Aguilar, Lorena Aguilar. She's very famous and well known for doing this kind of studies in 2021. No? And she really proves with examples around the world that this is the case again, that women are under more vulnerable conditions in the wetlands. So, and finally, in this approach, we know that gender approaches in development do not point to the transformation of patriarchal relations, no? That's the source of gender inequality, nor to the premise of economic growth as the foundation of development. This is developed by Eva and myself in one paper, and by Lang, and by many other feminist researchers. Something I have to mention, and I think is very important, that none of the revised participatory methodologies to monitor protected areas include gender-related indicators. Why? No? That was something very interesting and sad at the same time to find out. So, and the last concepts I take in my theoretical framework are the vivir bien. Instead of asking, like the Sinchi did, what is abundance for you, I ask, what is vivir bien for you? What is good living for this community? Why? Because in Bolivia, the vivir bien, probably you know, Bolivia was one of the first to, how was that, assign, to grant rights to Pachamama, to the Mother Earth, no? Ecuador and Colombia have also done some work on that. And this is a very well-known concept in Bolivia. So is this buen vivir? What is buen vivir for you? And from this definition, it comes all the indicators that I elaborated with the community. And the other are wetlands rights. I will not go very much into that. No, it's simply the recognition on the living personality and the legal rights of the wetlands. So I wanted to know what the communities define for wetland rights and for vivir bien, and from there it derived the indicators. So then I came up with this research question, main research question. How can the well-being and wetland rights indicators identified by local communities in the protected area be locally monitored to enhance its well-being, the well-being of its inhabitants? And then I have three secondary questions. The one that is related to how they define these two concepts. The second one has to do with the indicators and how to measure them in a way that they don't have to depend on external experts and actors, what they can really measure. And the third one has to do with gender transformative actions that can be promoted during the identification and monitoring of these communal indicators, no? So I studied that in a small community, Aguaizal community, very beautiful one. They have this bird, Paraba barba azul, the Monos lucaci. They have a tourist lodge. 53 families when I started, now they are 65. It's growing. and is very much dependent on the nearby lagoons and small water bodies. It's, of course, a very traditional society. The three main authorities are male. The gender roles are very well defined, and they live mainly producing some food, and now they're expanding their activities with cattle as well. So the methodology, I will just mention the left ones, not to bore you very much. It was very important, of course, the cooperation with the community, with the authorities mainly, to identify their willingness to participate. It was just a verbal agreement that was respected, though, through all these months. Then we came with the conceptualization of well-being and wetland rights, no, through workshops and personal interviews with the families, in the communities, visiting family by family, elaboration of the indicators proposal at the university in La Paz, then going back, no, by plane, by car, and by motorcycle to the community for the validation. We have these kind of meetings at the community. We identify the indicators again with them, no? They saying, are you able to measure this? What this would this point to the degradation or the rights of the wetlands and also to your own well-being? And they say yes. So we elaborated 30 indicators, 13 of wetland rights and 17 of well-being. Then we identify how the methods, how we are going to measure each of them without having any of these sophisticated or even not sophisticated tools. After the first measurement in November 24, this was validated also by the volunteers, 2 volunteers who are measuring it, who are measuring the indicators, no? And then we have already the baseline, and the next measurement will be in February 2025. So I also have presented, not me, but the volunteers, because we want that they appropriate this measurement for them. They have presented, they are these 2, very proudly presented these measurements, no? So what are the results? The results, you will see what are the formal definitions, no? The formal definition of wetlands rights are 8, very, some heavy to read, so I will not read, but they are the rights of the wetlands as defined by this initiative. The community was very pragmatic. Wetland rights, no pollution and fullness of water bodies. So from there, it derived all the indicators in this case. And they were also very much pragmatic when defining well-being. This is the Bolivian definition, which is very philosophical, the Pachamama, the Mother Earth, to live in harmony. Well, they say for us is to have our tranquility, peace, and respect, living without violence. That was very important to derive some gender indicators, gender-related indicators. Housing, services, clean environment, healthy animals. No, this was identified by groups, separated men, women, young people, then all together. So it was all a process there. And now our book, measurement book, looks more or less like that. No, you have the date of measurement, your variable, and your method, your indicator, your measurement unit, how much would be the acceptable range for them. Then you have your measurement, and if that is acceptable or it's not acceptable. That's what we came out with at the end. Something that's very important to mention, and I forgot, is that something that during the negotiation helped for them to accept, or they thought it themselves, is that if they have this, they will be more able to negotiate with the municipal government and with other actors, because there are 9 communities that are always asking for money, asking for services, asking for training. What distinguishes them from the other communities? And they say, if we have these measurements, we will be more able to negotiate with the government and with other actors as well. So that was the main interest for them to continue with these measurements. No? So the results, I apologize for this awful, awful table. I didn't find a better way to present. I will not read it, of course, all of them. But what I wanted to tell you mainly is that among these 13 indicators related to wetland rights are, we identify together, for example, the water resident beach level in the lagoon, in the local lagoon, of course, what was acceptable for them. The last estimation was that the water received 3 meters, which is not acceptable. This was presented in the communal meeting. So these are biophysic indicators that should be there, of course should be there, no? This one that is in red is one that we changed in the second meeting because it was, the method is the observation of fish mortality in the Laguna Raldes that is close by. And before was the observation of the frogs. But then it was discussed that the frogs can also migrate or live for other reasons rather than the contamination. So we end up with the fish mortality. So each of these indicators was discussed in depth. You can see also that there are quantitative as well as qualitative units and range of measurement. So besides the biophysic factors, we also measure wetland management and protection, in which the directory of the municipal area and how the forest guards act and interchange information with the community. They are also, some of these methods include asking directly the community in their monthly meetings. And then the second group of indicators that have to do with the well-being, based on their definition, we have one indicator that is, for example, coexistence without violence, case of family or neighborhood violence. What is acceptable for them is 0 cases, no? The estimation, the measurement, so the observation was 1, they don't accept that. Teenage pregnancies, it's a very big problem in the region, no? Girls 12, 13, 14, 17, they are having already their children. And this is unacceptable. That's something that we discuss also, although it could be sociable acceptable there. When we discuss it, and that's very tricky, we know as researchers in the field that you don't know how much you are really influencing, how much they are telling you what you want to hear. But the truth is that at the end they say, okay, we don't accept teenage pregnancies, that's not correct. So we will accept 1 every year without judging anything. I put, okay, 1 every year is acceptable, and they are measuring it as well now, no? Knowledge of laws against violence, no? There are 3 specific laws that are very well known because they are promoted in Bolivia, but they say 100% of men and women should know about this law. The first measurement was that only 20% heard of that, know more or less what's about, so that's not acceptable. So they are going to ask an NGO to provide training in those specific laws because now they can say we have measured that. So under well-being, we have coexistence in the family and community, education, health, production and food, traditional knowledge, only measured by medicinal plants use. Animal well-being is very important because the situation of the animals is just terrible. It's really very bad. And it's not only poverty, it's also lack of awareness. And we know by now that animal violence and mistreatment is related with general violence. And since they define well-being as being also in peace with nature and with their animals and all that, we included these 2 indicators as well. Organization and communal representation have to be there, and tourism, since they are expecting to live from tourism, but have so far not much result because of the government not acting very smartly on that area. So the last result I'm going to show you, it's in the question 3. What gender transformative actions can be promoted during the identification and monitoring of communal indicators, no? And you can see that I add an action in each of the methodological steps. Probably more can be done. But what I did was to, at the beginning, to be very clear about the need to measure gender-related indicators, so this will not be a trouble at the end. They accepted that. They recognized the need, at least discursively, the need to improve women's situation in the community. Then I made some relations between conceptualizations of well-being and wetland rights to gender equality. We included the gender-related indicators, included these laws, whether they are aware or not of those, what does this mean for the community. Something that is very important is the visibilization of naturalized and hidden inequalities that are also there in the community. And finally, in one sentence, the contribution or what can be done is the acknowledgement, visibilization, and following up of patriarchal practices in the community. And I have two conclusions. One of them is that it's feasible for local communities to identify and follow up their own environment and well-being indicators. However, capacity building and follow-up actions are needed, no? For example, just will mention this, they tend to give approximate results, no? So how much has the water receded? Between 2 and 5 meters, no? It's something like that, they say. So it's important for them to go and measure, use the metric system, use this rule. So it is really an effort because they tend to estimate things like that, no? And so it's important to train them. I have been doing that, also another colleague of mine. So we need to accompany them still in the process. This research visit was supposed to identify only the indicators, but the interest to measure them and to continue made that we continue the work still now. And my last conclusion has to do with the gender aspects, no? So the participatory construction of indicator results in their acceptance and ownership in local communities. So we knew that before, no? But it's a challenge in the case of gender measures of unequal power relations, as these are naturalized in everyday life. There is a fear of getting involved in family affairs and angering the male heads of households. Now, why are you asking me if there is violence in my family, if we cook from the forest, or if we cook from rice that we bought in the city? So it's like meddling in internal affairs of family. So it has to be a lot of, we have discussed a lot during the communal meetings, that they are there as researchers. They are not judging anybody for what they cook, for what they do, or anything, no? Of course, we don't ask about violence cases family by family, but they know each other very well. And they ask mainly the mayor of the community who knows everything about everybody in the community, no? So there is a lack of a gender perspective on the part of those reporting. They have no idea of a gender perspective. For them, certain things are just natural. There is a social environment that raises women's discrimination in general, not only in the community, also the authorities. For them, it's just normal cases of abuse, rape, physical or psychological violence, economic violence happens a lot. So it's, for them, it's very much naturalized. So this environment erases this discrimination. Okay, I don't know how I am with the time. I'm trying not to, it's still okay? Okay, then maybe I will just comment to finalize this case of a female technician of this World Conservation Society, which was appointed to also make aware and train the municipal technicians, the forest guards. And she's also not taking into account, talking about gender, no? And whatever she says, so the technicians refuse to go and be trained by her, by her. Another case that I saw very closely, it was that when you see this network of actors, you see that in the rural farms, these people who have really thousands and thousands of hectares full of cattle, they hire families to work for them. And although I thought that the war situations would be in the communities, in real life, in the field, it was clear that the war situation is for women who are hired with their families in these farms because they are not in public eyes and they are very much exploited in this area. So this is a very much interesting feminist approach, let's say, methodology to see not only who are the most relevant actors, because then this woman and this family are not so relevant when you talk about wetlands management and wetlands rights, but they are the ones who are at the worst social and economic situation in this environment. No, so it would be important probably to also have a look at that, research on that, which goes, I will try to take up, but it goes a bit beyond the scope of this research.